Okay, we're live. Okay, I am going to make a top 10 list of my favorite films of all time. I will walk you through a couple of honorable mentions. Reason I'm doing this is just because, I've just been seeing people have a cool Discord about these kind of things online. So I wanted to make a video. I felt like it was right up my alley. Basically, the criteria of this list is based on a couple of things. If a film has influenced me or basically shaped the way that I view the world, or it has left a tremendous impact on me, if it's something that I think about on a monthly, weekly, daily basis, then it's probably on this list. And also cultivating and adding in there just the elements of the story, the acting, how well the actors did, the editing, the sound design, the direction, as well as the film score and how that drives the story. I'm crazy passionate about film scores, and I gravitate towards films that have original scores, and listen to those scores all the time when I'm reading and studying and sometimes going to sleep. And so anyway, I'll just get right into the list. I'm going to do some honorable mentions. I'll fly through them, and I might give a word or two on each one. Toy Story 3, honorable mention because this is an amazing animated conclusion to Pixar's Toy Story. It's a story of growing up and coping with the reality that growing up and moving on is a serious part of life, and I love it. I saw it for the first time with my 1-year-old son like 2 months ago, and I cried at the end. And if a film is doing that to me, then I'm sure it's done that for other people. Toy Story 3 was amazing. Honorable mention. I'm also going to throw in The Iron Giant. I won't get into it for very long, but a film that I grew up on. It basically is the story of an outer space visitor who comes in, and he gets acclimated to the human way, and he gets to make a decision of the kind of robot that he's going to be. You choose who you get to be. And that's the famous line from The Iron Giant, and it's a story. It's a story of sacrifice. It's a story that has very likable and relatable human characters, and even some adult themes, and that kind of makes it timeless for me. It's one that I'm excited to show my kids moving forward. Next up on the honorable mentions, we've got Unbreakable. This is M. Night Shyamalan's take on superhero. What if a superhero kind of was living on this world, and this man Davis Dunn, he's basically discovering things about himself, and it kind of explores what it would be like to be in the shoes of Davis Dunn and his son as they're exploring. Oh my gosh, my dad has abilities, or I have abilities, and basically it. You want to come in? I'm making my video. I'm just gonna keep going. Okay, you can be here.
Thanks.
Okay.
You didn't want to clean up the background?
No, don't care. You can clean it up if you want.
No thanks.
Okay. So Davis Dunn is this guy, and it explores the story of what it's kind of like to essentially discover that you have powers. And the story is pretty grounded in reality. It's very slow pacing, and this slow burn culminates, and this is what makes it so great, especially my favorite film of his. It leads all the way up until the very end, and surprise, Shyamalan twist ending. It gives this twist ending that really reshapes and reframes everything that you had seen up until this point. So Unbreakable, amazing. I think it's definitely not recognized enough. And then last honorable mention is going to be Prisoners. And Prisoners, directed by Denis Villeneuve. I think we had either Roger Deakins or, no, who was it? Or Greg Fraser. It was Roger Deakins, yeah, and oh my gosh, the shot of the tree, the zoom in on the tree, and all you know is that something tragic has happened behind the camera, and that's the abduction of the daughters. And the story is, it explores the lengths that someone would go to get their children back, and it explores questions of, hey, how far would I be willing to go? What laws would I be willing to break, or what laws could I never cross the line of in order to get what I need to get? And the detective, played beautifully by Jake Gyllenhaal. He's got twitches, he's got tics. It brings a lot of human characteristics to this on-screen character. You know, I love when films do that, and they build out characters that are grounded with nuance and grounded in reality. And Hugh Jackman's character, he's more like this conservative, very protective father. He's got a shelter that's loaded with like things like gunpowder and gas and weapons and things like that. And it's like those people exist. They're just protective by nature, and it explores like this father that's equipped with kind of that knowledge, what lengths he would go to see his daughter come home. Okay, getting into number 10, we've got Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 1. I'm a huge fan of Dune, read the book, love the universe, love the story and the arc of Paul Atreides. I love the world building that Frank Herbert did, and Denis brings this one to life for me. The cinematography done by Greg Fraser, perfect. Paul coming out of adolescence, and tragedy strikes his household, and he has to step up to bat and become this leader. There's one particular scene that melts my heart every time I hear the dialogue. Ooh, thunder outside. Basically, the scene where Duke and Paul are going back and forth, and I believe Duke says something along the lines of, I don't know. I'll just play the scene.
I told my father I didn't want this either. I wanted to be a pilot. You never told me that. Your grandfather said, a great man doesn't seek to lead. He's called to it. And he answers. And if your answer is no, you'll still be the only thing I ever needed you to be. My son.
This scene reminds me of me and my father, the amount of grace that he's given me throughout my life, and basically that relationship of Paul and his father is just so beautiful to watch, and so heartbreaking to watch kind of unfold as the film goes on. So coming in at number 9, I've got Casino Royale. Casino Royale is on this list because it's one of the best like action spy dramas of all time. You remove James Bond IP from it, and it's still an incredible film. I'm still blown away with what they did here. I love what they did artistically, opening up with the black and white. It's got one of the greatest parkour action scenes of all time when it came out. I mean, that was like legendary for me to watch as a kid, and loving parkour back then, and one of the best Bond villains, and extremely high stakes, and just incredible storytelling. I'm moving on. So number 8, we've got Christopher Nolan's sci-fi heartfelt masterpiece, Interstellar. And Interstellar makes this list because it's everything that I want from a movie. It has adventure, it has the heartfelt characters. It is sci-fi, it's in the sci-fi category, but at the same time, there is so much heart. And what this film is truly about, it's not about getting the humans off of the planet and saving them. I mean, it is. But what it's really about is the exploration of the relationship between a father and his children, and essentially the people that he loves most, and what he would be willing to do and willing to sacrifice to see them live on and generations live on after that. And I think that that's what's masterfully done about Interstellar is you have the adventure, you have the sci-fi elements that hit, that click, the space travel, like all of the beautifully done things like that. But then you have scenes like the video log and McConaughey breaking down as he's watching his kids grow up in just a few minutes and realizing how much he had sacrificed and realizing he had made a mistake, not a mistake for mankind, but a human mistake in his own life. And he had just missed the moments of watching his kids grow up. Like I said, I love scores and movie scores. This film has one of the best movie scores of all time. Day One, Chord-Filled Chase, Mountains, I think. Just amazing work by Hans Zimmer to help drive the story, build suspense. And it's like you feel like you're just kind of wandering in space with this score. It's a score that I listen to daily, and it's a score that I love. Coming in at number 7, we've got Ridley Scott's masterpiece and his best film in his discography, 1979 Alien. So, this is the best example of when horror meets sci-fi and the best that it has to offer. I believe the artist's name is Grieger, who helped Ridley draw up this universe, draw up the alien, draw up the spaceship. It's wonderfully connected, has this very metal feel about it, this grit. It really feels like another world, and it's so believable. You have these jaw-dropping scenes like the face sucker table scene when he busts through the chest. You have the twist in there that I will not say just in case you haven't seen it, and ultimately all the horror elements come into place when the alien, you know that it's around, but you don't see it. And so your imagination is filling the gaps. And it's like, is it in that dark corner? I don't know. Like you might see like the tail dangle or the chain dangle, and it's like, maybe it's an alien. I don't know. But it just is it's a film that keeps you guessing, and you just wouldn't expect that it would end the way that it ended. And I loved Alien all the way through. I think Ripley is like the strongest female on-screen character of all time, played by Sigourney Weaver, and it's beautifully done when there's kind of the cast acts like an orchestra for the first act or the first 2 acts of the film, and I love it when films do this, but you just don't know who is the protagonist that you're following, and in the end you end up with Ripley as the strongest character, the bravest one, willing to do the hard things, and you ultimately don't get a lot of shots and a lot of visuals of the alien, which is great because it allows your imagination to fill the gaps, making it for a more horrific experience going through the film. Coming in at number 6, this film is highly dependent on my movie-going experience, and when it came into my life and the time in which it came in, basically I just wasn't able to give a lot of time to just my love of film and my love as a film goer and as a filmmaker. I wasn't able to give a ton of time because I was just really tied up with work and with my friendships and my relationships at the time. And since then, I've had a baby, and life is just, the pace of life has slowed down a ton, and I've been able to amp back up my love for film and talking about flicks, and so this movie came in at a perfect time. It was last summer. I'll go ahead and reveal it, but my birthday, it came out right around my birthday, and so we got to see Barbenheimer for my birthday. And so Oppenheimer is my number 6 pick, and when me and my wife Jenna, we went to go see Oppenheimer, we drove to Dallas to see the 70 millimeter film print of the showing, and it was the only film projection showing of Oppenheimer, in 300 miles or something crazy, and so we went over there and got to the theater early. The manager gives us a quick blurb about the experience and how special it is, and points to the projectionist in the top room and said that he had, flown in for 3-4 weeks just to be running this film, and that there's not going to be any trailers, so you have to be on time because printing more trailers is adding a ton of money to this film print that's already $70,000. So basically, it was, the film starts up, it starts flickering, and you see Oppenheimer, and the words are just ever so slightly shaking, and the highlights are blown just a tad, and it just was a beautiful experience, and my favorite movie-going experience to date. And I'll never forget when the film cues, and I think it's Can You Hear the Music, comes on and starts playing, and at the same time you've got Nolan's beautifully edited visuals showing Oppenheimer basically in his head. He's thinking of like splitting an atom and thinking of just the different things that are about to come in his life as a young man, and you just experience this overwhelming like sense of just visuals and stimulation that this man went through during his adolescent years. And it's beautifully acted, it's perfectly shot, it's perfectly edited. The way that you told the story needed to be told that way. They invented a film celluloid so that they could shoot this in 70 mil black and white. I obviously love that aesthetic, and I love the things that they did with this film. And for a 3-hour R-rated biopic, you wouldn't expect this to be as high up on the list as it is, but it is, because it's masterfully done. It left a huge impact on me. It was the greatest movie-going experience that I've had to date. And the score aided the story so well, and is one that I still listen to almost every day. So Oppenheimer is an S-tier flick for me, and that's number 6. I'm going to go to number 5 now, is Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. I mean, this film left such an impact on me because as a kid, I watched it 100 times on VHS, and there's so many amazing character arcs explored here. Sam Raimi's traumatic fall, like his version of the traumatic fall of Doc Ock, and he explores his dark side, and but at the same time, like, allows room for kind of a redemption in the form of his own sacrifice of his creation at the end of the film. And then you've got Spider-Man, who's kind of riding high as Spider-Man, but things are not working out in his personal life. And so his personal life takes a dip, and he drops the mask for a while, and then he's redeemed and decides to come back as Spider-Man, gets his powers back, and ultimately saves New York. And it explores themes of sacrifice on Spider-Man's end and Doc Ock's end. At the very end, he sacrifices himself to take on the weight and bear the basically atone for his own sins, is what Doc Ock has to do at the end. But it's got great romance and drama mixed into there, great action sequences, and one of the most heartfelt sequences that I've ever seen in a superhero flick is when Spider-Man is saving the New York citizens on the train, and he's given them his all, and he's about ready to roll over and die or fall off of this thing, or I don't know what's going to happen to him, and he's falling off, and then the hands catch him, and it's the hands of the New York citizens, and they basically take him and they save Spider-Man after he had saved them, and then he's at his most vulnerable point when he realizes he's not wearing a mask, and he's like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? And then the kid bends over and says, don't worry, we won't tell anybody, and essentially, you realize in that moment that New York City is just as much a character as MJ, as Harry, as Pete, and as Doc Ock, or any other character that's important to this story. New York City, the citizens of New York City are integral. And so, beautifully done, masterfully done, even has bits of comedy, left an impact on me. Best superhero movie, in my opinion. And then I will go to the next pick. So, my number 4 pick, also plays into my movie going experience. It's summer of 2022. We're post COVID, and there's a massive crowd at the IMAX to see Top Gun Maverick. And so it's just beautiful to see what they did with this character and with this franchise 30 years after the original. To shoot all those action scenes in my IMAX with the actors in the planes, it's jaw-dropping. I mean, it really is. And the score is amazing and brought back and really aids the story. You've got fun new characters like Rooster and Hangman that all aid and add value to the story. You know, sometimes like whenever they're rebooting a franchise or you know, movies are redone or they get a sequel, new characters are added in, and sometimes those characters don't clash or they might just not mesh well and it feels forced. But it just doesn't feel like that here. It feels completely natural. I think Cruise owns the role of Maverick. You get really amazing sequences like the Mach 10 intro sequence, any of the training sequences, and then obviously the final action battle sequence, and then Hangman coming in, saving the day. It's just like, it's so epic. People in our theater were standing up, clapping, cheering. Jenna didn't have as good of a time because there was a smelly guy sitting in front of her and she held her nose up.
I was also pregnant and sensitive.
She was also pregnant and sensitive. So, not her best movie going experience, but dang sure was a top 5 for me. All right. Coming in at number 3 is David Fincher's masterpiece, The Social Network. So you're not going to find The Social Network usually on a list like this, but for me it was so impactful as a filmmaker. I really came across the film, I guess on my second viewing while I was in film school at North Texas, and it was one that I watched again and again and again and again because he's perfect. Sorkin wrote it, right? Who wrote that? Screenplay? Yeah, Sorkin wrote it. Aaron Sorkin wrote it. The dialogue is masterful. Andrew Garfield's performance is legendary. Jesse Eisenberg as Mark is harsh and cold and blunt and real. And I just love that these people, they have flaws and those flaws are explored and they just don't feel like, they just feel real. And like I said earlier, I love when they do that. Fincher is a perfectionist, and so you feel it in this film. It is masterfully colored. It is masterfully shot. Every pan feels steady. Every tilt is smooth, and it's just this unique style that I am utterly gravitated to. And also Trent Reznor, and I can't remember, I think it's his brother, but these guys come in as the composers, and it completely aids the story, and in my opinion leaves one of the most memorable movie scores of all times. And the movie score for The Social Network is one that I have used time and time again in my nonprofit work and in just like personal videos in my life because I love it. It inspires me so much. Coming in at number 2, Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2. I don't have to harp on it. Same cast and crew as Dune Part 1. But essentially the world is established. Paul Atreides has character and he has a past. The Fremen are there with him. And now we just get to live and explore this world. And it creates for some of the most thrilling, aesthetic, and harmonious cinematic sequences that I've ever seen put to screen. I think Austin Butler as Fade is one of the most memorable movie villains of all time. The whole black and white sequence, aesthetically, I'm so drawn to the black and white look. The whole black and white sequence shot on the Harkonnen world is visually so stunning. When Jenna and I went and saw it in IMAX, there were multiple moments where she's just not even a big moviegoer, but multiple moments where her and my jaw was dropped because of how gorgeous some of these stills were and magnificent, and the scale was captured. And you really feel like you're in this other universe. It is escapism at its purest, and all of it was done perfectly, catapulted, the perfection catapulted by Hans Zimmer's score. So, big fanboy for Dune. Really excited about what he's going to do in the next addition to this trilogy now. And my all-time favorite film is one that has influenced me more than any other movie, any other piece of media. It's one that I think about basically every day. It introduced me to sci-fi. It's one that I saw as early as 3 years old on the couch with my parents and popped it at the VHS in probably thousands of times when I was a kid growing up. I had the merchandise and the lore and all the collectibles as a kid, and this film is Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park, 1993. So it's such a unique time in the film industry history where CG looks good, and I think one of the first times it looks very realistic and is aided by these beautiful animatronics done by Stan Winston, and it creates this very believable world, and so you get to like live in this story based on Michael Crichton's novel with these characters in this very believable world. And it's at its core, it's a sci-fi adventure film, and but what drives it is the characters and the likability of the characters. Like as an adult, I think Ian Malcolm is like the best character. He's the character that is unfortunately right. He has all the best one-liners. He's totally memeable. But as a kid, you know, I ate up Alan Grant. I wanted to be Alan Grant. I wanted to be an archaeologist. I wanted to dig up dinosaur bones. I wanted to wear the cowboy hat and the blue button down and just be this Indiana Jones kind of Alan Grant type character and look up dinosaurs. And to this day, I think it is that Spielberg captured the awe and the wonder of what it would be like if we stumbled across dinosaurs. And you know, the concept of it is not too far-fetched out there to where it's like, okay, I'm completely removed. You know, it's like we're not in fantasy here. Like, it's kind of a unique take on this concept of what if a mosquito bit a dinosaur and then got stuck on the sap of a tree and then it fossilized and then we dug up that fossil and we did something with the blood. And brilliant sci-fi, brilliant film. And one that I think about now, like as an adult, and my kid is in the world and he plays with dinosaur toys, and it's something that it's just called to my attention again. I'm reminded of Jurassic Park and how amazing of a story that is, and not to mention John Williams' score, which is beautiful and helps drive the story, and just the scene of Alan Grant taking off his glasses and looking up at the Brontosaurus for the first time. And the score comes in, and it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, it really evokes the feeling of awe and wonder. And later in the film, after the park has collapsed, just terror and fright, and done so well. So Jurassic Park, S tier, 10 out of 10. That is my top 10 favorite movies of all time. And yes, if you have something to say or a comment or want to give me your top 10, comment down below and maybe I'll do it again. All right, see you later. Peace.